Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 is here, and if you ask me, I was really excited about the story in which Season 6 was going to tap into, only because it was going to be all about karate. It was going to be a season with the Saikai Takai, a proper global world level karate competition which our kids actually deserve. And of course it's Cobra Kai, so therefore it was definitely going to have a bit of interpersonal conflicts. But here's the interesting thing, if you think about it, all of the conflicts of Cobra Kai and Karate Kid were actually resolved in Season 5. They even exhausted all the villains that they can bring in or bring back from the Karate Kid movies. Literally, as we come to the end of Season 5, all the villains were actually dealt with. So this season was going to be kind of an epilogue, and it was going to be a longer epilogue which will focus on a completely different story, which was going to be the most interesting because it was going to be all about karate. But this season was actually weird because this season was going to be split into 3 different parts, and part 1 consisted of only 5 episodes. So they had to build up a lot of things to give that season finale kind of a thing, or this season part 1's finale kind of a thing in episode number 5. And yeah, they did that, and I won't say that it's a cliffhanger. You pretty much know that where the season is or where this part is going to end, and it's not at all a cliffhanger, but yeah, it was built nicely enough. But as I was talking about the conflicts being resolved in Season 5, so moving into Season 6, they definitely had to create some more conflicts, some more interpersonal conflicts in order to give that spice to the season. And they did that by creating internal conflicts between characters, and most of the internal conflicts actually surround around they choosing the college, they going off to college, about their future and stuff. So that was the internal conflicts that almost every character was dealing with. And also in addition to that, the main conflict was about the Saikai Taikai, because obviously the entire dojo was not going to be sent into the Saikai Taikai, only a handful of students were going to be picked, and there comes the competition and there comes the conflicts. But what about the conflicts around the adults? And by adults I definitely mean Johnny and Daniel LaRusso. Doesn't matter how much Johnny actually surrenders to being a Miyagi-Do, but with Johnny there's always that little thing that you think like, okay, if this happens he will actually fall over and just flip again and just flip back to being Johnny again. There is always that risk with Johnny. He's kind of that ticking bomb, and you just expect that to happen. You just expect that Johnny will actually fall back to being Johnny Lawrence, and of course they do this in this season as well. But before that, there are a few very sweet moments where he really goes out of the way and really supports Miyagi-Do. He actually accepts it not just as a way of, doing karate, but also a way of life. So that was a very sweet moment. But you always know with Johnny that okay, something bad is going to happen. But what about Daniel and his conflicts? So Daniel's life actually revolves around Mr. Miyagi still, and any conflict that could hamper Daniel is the conflict around Mr. Miyagi. And we actually saw this in the trailer that there are some secrets that are unearthed in this season about the history of Mr. Miyagi, and which actually shatters Daniel in a way that also plays a part in this season. And they actually had to do that because nothing else actually bothers LaRusso. Nothing else bothers him. But if you want to really shaken up Daniel, you have to dig in the past and you have to talk about Mr. Miyagi. But there are a lot of things and a lot of conversation that you can have around this fact that would these so-called different history of Mr. Miyagi, how will that affect the original Mr. Miyagi character? I mean, that's a debatable thing, but we can't actually talk about that at this point in time because we haven't seen the whole season and we don't have the whole context. But now let me tell you, the least interesting thing about this season, or this part of the season for me at least, was the story of Sensei Kreese. I mean, we have seen that a ton of times. Kreese arrives, he picks the bully of the group, he picks the bully of the dojo, and the bully is always the best fighter, and he takes on the job of making that bully, that best fighter bully, into a bigger bully and a even better fighter in a way that only Kreese can justify. I mean, come on, he always comes in and always manipulates teenagers. He does that all the time, and really that was the most uninteresting part for me because I knew what was going to end up with that character. I just knew, and I'm sure everyone knows that at this point in time. And I'll be really honest here, in Season 5 when his character was killed off in the prison, at least for a moment as it seemed, I was relieved. I was quite happy. I thought, okay, we are done with him. But then he comes back. But if I think about it, and if I think about making peace with that storyline, I mean, yeah, it is very, very repetitive. But if I think about the payoff that we'll have at the end of this season, I think it has to be worth it. Because we all know Cobra Kai will lose at the end of this season and Miyagi-Do will win. I mean, yeah, we can all bet on that. That will be a befitting end to that, because we don't have that exact closure of the character of Johnny and the character of Kreese. So I think we'll have that at the end of this season, and I just hope that all this uninteresting part of Kreese, for me at least, and all that repetitive part of him actually pays off at this season. Now at the end, let's talk about the episode number 5, the final episode of this part, because that was going to be a very tricky business. Because okay, you are starting a new season and you at least have to give one season to just show a normal life, to just show some new interpersonal dynamics which are good. And yeah, they do that. They actually take a couple of episodes, I think, if I remember correctly, and that was generous, that was needed. But when you have to build up something for episode number 5, I think they start to build up in episode number 4, and they does have enough to do that. I mean, they actually use a plot point which they set up way earlier in some of the earlier seasons about a certain character. Don't worry, I won't spoil that for you. But they bring that plot element and then they just kick off that final element or that final battle in the 5th episode of this part 1. It works actually. It does feel a bit pushed, but it works nonetheless. But one thing I noticed, that the karate that we see in these 5 episodes, they are shot very nicely in this episode. I mean, you can really feel that the craftsmanship has really risen, that they are really fighting nicely, they are really capturing nicely it, and they are really showing it nicely. So it really feels good. And the whole thing about the Karate Kid franchise is about showing the fights pretty nicely. Again, we have that, but it just feels a bit different and it just feels good. It just feels better in the way that it's shot. I mean, they have done some exceptional job earlier as well in season 2 or 3, where that whole one take action sequence was done at the school. Great job. It was just a remarkable piece of work. Please go down in the comment section and please share your thoughts about Cobra Kai season 6 part 1. And if you are considering watching Deadpool and Wolverine, do not miss this video. And if you're a Stranger Things fan, again, do not miss this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.